Hello everyone, Cutting Tool Designer here. Welcome to part 27 of restoration of the South Bend Heavy 10 lathe. Today we're just going to cover a few things that I don't really talk about much in this restoration, and one of them is cleaning, stripping paint, cleaning up parts, give you an idea where things are at, review some results from some citrus strip, possibly even some from oven cleaner. So I know it's not really in the restoration portion, so to speak, of the assembly disassembly, but it's really important, and quite frankly it takes the most time out of everything that we're doing. So just thought I'd take a little bit of time. Hopefully this won't be a very long video, and show you about cleaning and stripping the paint and so forth. So hang on one second and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Well, what you see here is the headstock, and what I've applied is citrus strip to this after we cleaned it up. You really got to get as much of the oil and grease and stuff off of this before you put the citrus strip on. It doesn't cut through grease very well. So we used kerosene in a container and cleaned it up as best we could, even using a wire brush to get into other areas. Now this was applied 24 hours ago, and as you can see, paint's coming off pretty good now, pretty much in big chunks, which is what you want to see. So to clean it, basically you're just gonna come in here and scrape off as much as you can, and in some cases if it has multi-layers on it, you're probably going to have to apply another coat, but that's basically the first thing to do, is to strip all this off, and it's pretty much a messy job, so you're gonna have a lot of paint pieces left over. See, here's a spot where there's still some paint on there, probably from multiple coats. This thing has probably about, I'm gonna say 3 or 4 different layers of paint on it. So sometimes, depending upon the paint that was used, whether or not you can get it all off the first time or not. This takes off, this so far seems to have taken off pretty much the top layers for sure, and some of the inside down in here. I see there's another layer, and there's some green paint. It was painted green once before, along with South Bend gray underneath that. So it's it's had quite a few paint jobs over the years, and you know, just for the most part, just kind of scrape off the majority of the paint that comes off. It's time consuming. There's a lot of work involved. Time just spent trying to get this off. Another thing is to actually use like a wire brush after you get a majority of the big stuff off, and just keep on taking it down until you get it cleaned up as best as possible. And then what you'll need to do then is also wipe it down. And I usually use just some paper towels. Let's see, it's getting a good majority of it. There's still some in here that needs to come off yet, so we might have to put another layer on. But yeah, it just takes work. So you're gonna be spending a lot of time. You get most of it off and clean it up, but then just use a paper towel, wipe it down and dry it off, because there's still some cases still kind of wet. But as you can see here, we're pretty much down to the bare casting. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting this cleaned up a little bit better, and we'll come back and take a look at it. Then I'll show you where we're at with the bed of the machine. And again, this is going to have to be thoroughly washed afterwards to get it out of all the screw holes and through bolts and everything else, bolt holes. So let's do a little bit more of that, and we'll be back at you. So hang on a few seconds. All right, so little wire brushwork, wiping down, and after I get most of it off, to take off whatever residual fluid is left, because sometimes it's still a little sticky. I use some acetone on a rag to wipe down the bare metal. That gives us a little bit of an etch too. So, which I typically do right before I paint something. I still will use some acetone and to clean it and etch it right before I paint it. Another thing you could do is sometimes there's just areas that are thick that you really can't, instead of putting a bunch of stripper on it, I usually use just a little bitty screwdriver, and you can kind of get underneath there and pop it off, just like we're doing right here. Still a little bit on there, but it gets it closer down to the metal. And that helps get any of the big blobs, instead of, like I said, instead of going back over it again, just get in there with a little flat-bladed, I don't know if you want to call them drawer style screwdrivers, but the real small ones. And you can, a lot of times you just get in there and it'll scrape and pop it off. Not too worried about some of the stuff. We were going to paint over it, but it just looks nicer if you don't have a big blob sticking there and then you paint over it. So, a little at a time. So for the most part, you can see we've got the interior pretty well cleaned up. We've got the front face. This is the spindle end facing the rest of the lathe. And here's the back end. And the bottom isn't too bad. I mean, there's some spots in here, but down here I'm not too worried about it because, of course, you're not going to see it. So, you know, but you can still, because the paint is kind of already starting to break down, though just not completely. So if we don't paint over it, that's okay. Or, you know, if there's still a little bit left there, it's okay, but we want to get probably a majority of it off. So that now leaves the back end of the headstock here. Let's just clean this out a little bit more. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to show you what we do with the citrus strip, and you can see one layer of paint here is already kind of peeling off. So I would say there was 4 layers on here, because underneath some of this anyways is green paint. So we got 2 coats of gray, green layer underneath, and then another gray underneath of that, which is probably the original paint from the South Bend. So to use the citrus strip, and you know, basically I'm using the bed here as a cleaning tray. So I'm just gonna, oops, get that paper seal they put in there. So I'm just gonna dump some out right here. And then I just use a small chip brush. And what you want to do is you want to get it on pretty thick. If you brush it on and it's a thin layer, it doesn't do as good a job. So you have to have enough material there to let it actually start eating away at the paint. I mean, it'll do some, but it won't strip it down like you saw at the beginning of the video here, to where it really peels it right off the bare metal. So lob it on good. Make sure you got a really good layer sitting on there. You really want to see a lot of pink on there like this. You know, I know this isn't the most exciting thing to look at, but I wanted to cover this a little bit more because it's something that anybody that wants to get into this, you got to see what you're getting into and what it's going to take to get the job done. So, no, not exactly fun, but needs done. So, just wanted everybody to see what it takes. If we're lucky, maybe later on today, before I finish this video up, we'll have some results that we can show from this. Just a little bit more. Down here. Okay, so you see how well we've globbered it up. Probably use a little bit more there. So you definitely want to see a layer sitting there, because if you put it on thin, it's just going to kind of look like it's wet. So we definitely want to have a good solid coverage here. And just slap it on. Okay, so clean this up here. So if time permits, things go good today, we'll come back and see what this looks like here in a few hours. And just put the lid back on. And so far this goes pretty far, so that's pretty good. Okay, next we're going to take you over and take a look at the bed. So hang on a second and we'll be right back. Okay, we're over here in the bed. What I found was when I was stripping this down, of course it was the same number of layers on there, but the bed itself, it also had a coating of primer on it, and it was really thick. The citrus strip doesn't particularly like it. It kind of just sits there. It'll strip all the paint off, but got these big globs down the bottom where it ran because they caked it on so much, and not really hurting anything because it's underneath, but I don't know, it's just annoying more than anything, I guess. So you're pretty much down to where we just need to kind of get in here and scrape some of it off. Now what I found that does work pretty decent is this Easy Off oven and grill cleaner. Got that tip from Greg Halligan, Halligan 142. Check him out on YouTube. That was about empty, so I didn't get a chance to go get that. I actually had to get that at Lowe's, so I got a dollar store type of oven and cleaner. Not as good, not for grills basically, but you can spray it on there and let it work, and it'll eat through it slowly but surely. You can start scraping it off because it does kind of make it wet and gooey, so it makes it a little easier to get off, but it isn't everywhere. So not sure how much time I'm going to spend on trying to clean up the bottom here, of course because you can't see it, but I'd like to get it pretty decent. Now we'll let that sit for a minute. One of the things that I'm doing to clean up the surfaces, of course this had a lot of surface discoloration and so forth on it. And you can still see all the mill marks and lines and scrape marks from when it was made. I got one of these little abrasive foam things that you get at the hardware store. So you got like a medium grit and a fine grit, and there I usually just rub it on, smooth it out, get it down fairly decent, and then so red Scotch-Brite, go in there and kind of buff it a little bit. And then I also use this 320 wet and dry sandpaper. So I just come in here, and again, we're not trying to take material off as much as just kind of level it out and clean it up. So step by step, little by little. It takes a little while, a little elbow grease to get that, but coming along pretty good. And we'll probably just, at some point, just put just a tad of oil on there to protect it before we put it back together. As soon as I get the rest of this junk scraped off, we're getting pretty close. It's been a lot of work on this, so I wanted to point that out. To the point where we'll be able to start painting it hopefully pretty soon. So to give you a look at the rest of it here, okay, here's this side. This is the back side. I've got it down pretty good. It looks like the casting may have been in 57, as this is supposed to be a 58 machine, so that's about right. So we're getting pretty close here. Just want to clean up the bottom of the way surfaces a little bit. This side, not too shabby. I got some areas up here to clean up. Got most of it down. And I won't know if I flip it over, but I still want to do some polishing on the actual ways on the top. So you can see it kind of working there. You can see it kind of turning color. So it is working. You usually have to leave it on there for about, my experience, it's about 40 minutes to really have it do its job. But you can see, there we go. So this is oven cleaner. And we still have the big glob still there, but now you can start seeing bare metal there. Grab another paper towel. Oh yeah, stock up on paper towels while you do this too. Okay, so there, see? You can see it coming down to casting now. I mean, you could wire brush this. I've been putting the wire brush on it, but it takes a while to get through this, so if we can at least get the high spots off of these and get it cleaned up pretty close, and then we can come in and finish it with a wire brush. Because quite frankly, this is the only thing I've used a power wire brush on. Everything so far has been pretty much, you know, strip and clean. Haven't had to deal with too much stuff off of the rest of the parts, but so I will continue on that, and hopefully in the not too distant future we'll be painting this thing. Okay, with that said, let's get back over here, and it's only been, I don't know, 10-15 minutes since the last scene. We'll get you over here and you can see what's going on with this citrus strip on the headstock. Hang on one second, we'll be right back. Okay, well, you can see, and it's only been, I'm going to say 20 minutes since I applied this. I don't want to disturb it too much, but certain areas looks like it needs to go a little bit more, but you can see where it's really pilling up, comes right off. So I'm going to let this go for a while longer. Maybe come back in a little bit, we'll see. See, still hasn't really worked on this other coating that was on there. This is an area where I peeled off the top layer, but yeah, going pretty good. Ooh, peeled off right there. Alright, so I'm going to let this ride for a little while, and we'll come back and see how it looks. Be back at you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. Well, it's been I'm gonna say 2.5, almost 3 hours. And as you can see, it's bubbled up pretty good. So we're just gonna take some paper towels and try and wipe most of it off first, instead of scraping it all over the place. You can see some green under there. Don't want to get too much on the areas that I've already done. Most of it's coming up. Probably try and use the wire brush to get more of it off here. Try not to make too much of a mess that I have to clean up again. So just run this down here. See what's loose. Still kind of some hanging on there, but not too bad. We can probably get that cleaned off. Let it sit. After you get most of it off, what's left underneath in some cases is still kind of being worked on, even though you can't scrape it off real easy. And if you let it dry for a little while, then you can actually take a wire brush to it, and it'll, in some cases, come off a lot easier. Okay, so that's got a lot of the big loose stuff off. Wipe off all the other excess. So we got down past most of the green. There's still a little bit of green showing there. All right, it's a messy job. All right, so not too shabby. Got a good majority of it. There's still some areas there that I need to get to, but we'll let that kind of work its way in there a little bit longer, and then I'll take a wire brush and try and get the rest of it off. As you can see, still kind of coming off the surface when I scrape it a little bit. So I'll let it dry for a little while longer. If necessary, we'll put another coat on. Don't have as much area to cover, but then finish cleaning it up. Make sure everything's degreased, make sure all the holes are cleaned out and all the threads are cleaned out and all the oil passages are cleaned out, and we'll be ready to paint. Alright, well, I think we'll probably wrap up this episode, and we'll be back in just a second. Okay, everyone, well, let's go wrap up episode 27. Sorry it wasn't any assembly, disassembly, but the cleaning part is a big part of what we're doing. So I wanted to show you a couple ways of what we're working on and how to do it with the citrus strip and the oven cleaner, and how hard it is sometimes to get some of this off. If you let stuff sit long enough, it's not too bad, but some cases you got to go over it, and or you have to use a brush or something to get the rest of the paint off. So we're going to continue on those, and hopefully next episode we'll finally get to the underdrive. It's about ready to come out. So stay tuned for that, and I guess that's about it for a wrap for today. So if you like what you see, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. If you want to keep watching what we're doing, again, please subscribe. That way you get a notification when I post something new. And I appreciate everyone out there watching, and appreciate those that have subscribed. Until next time, everybody, take care. Test, test, test. How bad's my hair? Ooh, scary hair. Yeah, not too bad. If he's sticking up.